Okay, so it's the 22nd of September, 2025. I'm still fairly early into the bike ride so far this morning, but I decided to start recording anyway because I'm up here by the tracks. And, well, it's bouncier than I was expecting. Bouncier for the camera, not bouncier for me. Because while this bike does not have the highest level of suspension, it does have suspension as well as the oversized tires. So I'm not really feeling a lot of the bounciness. But it's just fun to do something new every once in a while. And right now, this is new. I'm assuming both of those men were homeless. Not 100% sure, but they both waved at me. They were both nice. Neither one of them was trying to flag me down, convince me to stop or anything, so even better. Because while I don't have a problem helping from time to time, here's a thing going on. I don't always have money on me, like right now. And I don't want to get to a position where I have to, like, defend, my personal body versus defending the bike or the camera or anything else I have on me. Oops. Thanks. Oh, hey, man. Oh, I'm good. The long-haired guy on the opposite side of the truck, he lives in my building. I think he recognized me because he was smoking something, and he was trying to flag me down, and I was just getting ready to stop and say, hey, what's up, when he was pointing at whatever he was smoking. I'm hoping it was just weed. But he, who knows what else it could have been. I don't know what else it could have been. Looked like a joint. But for all I know, it could have been anything. Where we at with traffic? I got a second to get across. All right. And then there's this. Whoop. I'm gonna squeeze past you real quick. That dude was just laying there. So yesterday, I went south, rode around through Denver a little bit. Not much because I was running low on battery. Turns out I did fail to. Turns out that when I tried to charge the battery the day before, I did plug the battery in to the charger, but the charger was not plugged into the wall. And apparently I missed that. So that's why I was a little low on juice yesterday. Thing is, I probably could have made it, because my ride ended up being like 11 or 12 miles yesterday. And I probably could have got, hey puppy, I probably could have got more out if I had just trusted the battery in the bike. But it's kind of like your car. You get down below a third of a tank and you start looking for gas stations. So, especially if you've ever been on a road trip. If you only ever live in town, you may not think like that, but if you've ever been on a road trip, you know how important it is to, going uphill a little bit. You know how important it is to always keep yourself gassed up. Whew. And it smells like sewage over here, so, that's always a plus. There's people's garbage. I mean, there's a lot of garbage around here, but the piles of it looks like somebody... Oh, there's a kitty over here. Hey, kitty. You okay? I don't know if I should take off or if I should look for the cat. Let me see. Because I'm wondering if somebody just... Because the cat ran down here into this thing of rocks. This kitty, I don't know if somebody just abandoned it out there. Okay, kitty, I wasn't going to hurt you. But yeah, people sometimes abandon animals. And I was wondering if the kitty was abandoned because there's no houses near here. Sure, there's, I'm about to show you, this fence right here. And on the other side of the fence is some kind of yard. You may have heard the dog barking at me a second ago. You know, and I said, hi, puppy. So there's a very good chance the cat just goes on the other side of the fence. And it just over here, just running around. I'm hoping that's the case and that the cat wasn't abandoned out here. But it is what it is. Nothing I can do about the kitty right now. Or maybe it belongs to whoever camping setup that is. And I've been hit by swarms of bugs a couple times, and I did not bring my whatchamahoosit gator. I did not bring the gator because I was thinking it was a little cooler this morning and probably wouldn't have that problem. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, so yesterday was Sunday. Oh, somebody drove around out there on the looks like a four-wheeler maybe. I don't know if you can see the tire tracks out there on the dirt. Or somebody went out there. I'm still in pedal assist 0. That's why we're going so slow when I hit uphill. Because this is all leg power. But yeah, yesterday was Sunday. I didn't do a dang thing. I woke up earlier than I wanted to. I was tired all day. And it doesn't help the building that I live in, being low income, has a lot of people with mental health issues or drug issues. And Friday and Saturday is when they really let loose. For example, the building has a laundry room, and it's free. You can go down there and do laundry. You know, you can wash each piece of clothing by itself if you want. The laundry room is that free. The problem is, oops. Sorry. The problem is that they're consumer grade washer and dryers and not commercial grade washer and dryers. So it's not like going to a laundromat. One of the best things about a laundromat is you put your clothes in, the doors lock. Once you start it, the doors lock. So you can be relatively secure in your laundry until the cycle stops. Well, this place, oops, that was the down I needed. Dang. I'm gonna have to turn around because I don't think there's a down over here. Nope. But a lot of what happens is, people go do laundry and they'll leave it, even though there's signs everywhere that say do not leave your laundry unattended. People will throw their laundry in the machine and go about their day, and they'll come back 2, 3, 4 hours later sometimes. Again, we're not talking about, well, let me rephrase it differently. Again, there's a lot of people in this building with mental health issues. So sometimes they're less concerned with their laundry than they are with, whatever else they got going on. And it has been frustrating the few times I've done laundry there, because people will go and use, all the machines will be quote unquote in use, but nobody's actually, checking their laundry, getting it out of the washer, putting it in the dryer, getting it out of the dryer, putting it in the washer. They're just coming back a few hours later, and moving it from one to the other if anything's available. Point being, nothing's available a lot, because people are just hogging them up. They're not respecting anybody else's time. They're just demanding respect for their time. So yesterday I'm sitting in the common area, and I was just feeling sociable, just sociable enough that I didn't want to lock myself or sequester myself in my apartment. So I was sitting down in the common area because I didn't want to go anywhere or do anything, and chatting with some of the other neighbors that I see a lot, or that I chat with every once in a while. And this guy came in through the lobby, because that's how you access the laundromat. You know what? Let's go over here. Let's do this today. See what happens. We're gonna ride on the other side of the river here, on the dirt, and see how bad it is. So there are truck tracks here. I'm gonna bump up pedal assist mode here just to help me through the dirt. But yeah, there is actually a rule that says you must wear a shirt and shoes in the lobby area or in the common areas, because the building does not have a pool area or anything. So, and I've actually seen the staff, again, it's staff 24/7. I've actually seen the staff yell at a guy for, walking around without a shirt on. It is very slidey here. He walked through the lobby without a shirt on. And again, extremely poor people, financially insecure. And one guy was doing laundry one day. I think the second time I was there doing laundry. He was doing laundry, and apparently he wanted to do even the clothes he was wearing. So he took off his shirt and his shoes and his socks and everything, and he threw it all in the washing machine. The only thing he kept on were shorts. Okay. Well, then when he's going back and forth through the lobby, he's being pulled aside by the front desk staff saying, hey, you have to have a shirt on. That is a policy here. You cannot be undressed in the common areas. Well, the guy then threw a fit, started screaming at the staff about how he had to do laundry, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It was a broken bottle back there. And it wasn't broken like smashed, it was broken to where there were a couple bottle parts. Ooh, this is really... and if I had hit one of those bottle parts, it probably would have sliced right into my tire, because it was pointing up and it was about 4 inches long. But yeah, this is not fun. I don't think I'll be doing this again. Has a little bit to do with the sand, but more to do with what's in the sand. So, yeah. Anywho, so yeah, yesterday, same kind of thing happened. Sitting in the common areas, and there was a guy walking around without a shirt on, and he starts screaming at the front desk staff about how his clothes were stolen, or not his clothes, his bedding was stolen from the washing machine. And one of the other guys, he's a veteran like myself, he was nicer about it than I would have been. He's like, hey man, there's cameras in the laundry room. If somebody stole your stuff, just go up there and say, hey, can you review the camera, see who stole my stuff? It's that simple. And the guy threw a fit, said he wouldn't do that, etc. And he said the same thing that I've heard from a few people, but I seriously doubt it, that the staff are stealing their clothes. Oh, I'm not reporting it to the staff. They're the biggest thieves here. I'm not reporting it this way. Those people don't care. They'll steal it. They'll be the first ones to steal it. Stuff like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, again, like, I'm fairly certain the staff are not the highest paid people in Denver. But, let's see. But, sorry, I was reading the sign about the photography again. It just says, no photography, video recording, filming, etc. without permission. Now, it doesn't say whether or not they mean commercial or consumer use or social media use. That's one of these days I'll go in there and actually ask. Maybe that'll be today. We'll see if anybody's up there when I get around. But, because while this cemetery is, I think, the oldest in the Denver area, it is not the most photogenic. But I did read an article about this cemetery the other day. Talked about how early pioneers, like the first governor of the Colorado Territory, is buried out here. And people who have names on buildings or mountains are buried out here. So, yeah. But the other cemetery, I forget the name of it. But it has, it's definitely more photogenic. This one, you know, you can tell most of the headstones are small and, you know, barely knee high, if not waist high. While the other cemetery, and I'll think of it later when I'm not trying to think of it, but it has like the big mausoleums and the weeping angels and things like that. Oh, sorry, I'm just looking around. But, yeah, he's screaming and yelling. He came into the common area, this guy screaming and yelling at everybody. The other guy was like, yeah, just go up to the front desk, which set the guy off even more. I'm not going to the front desk. There are thieves here. So, them being thieves here does not preclude you from living here, apparently. It's like, yeah, I promise you, I promise. None of the staff here want to steal your clothes. They have their own clothes. Like, they're not into your secondhand stuff. I'm sorry, they're just not. But apparently, that's a thing. But yeah, nobody from the front desk came up to this guy and said, hey man, you need to keep it down. You need to control yourself. You know, you can't come into the common area screaming and yelling. Nobody did anything like that. Nobody came over and told him he had to put a shirt on. Hey man, you know the rules. You have to wear a shirt in the common areas. Nobody said anything like that. So it's just kind of annoying that this guy was like losing his mind. But again, if he had been in there, if he had kept an eye on his laundry, he wouldn't have to have lost his mind. Now, the couple times I've done laundry there, I brought a book with me and I just sat there. It was that easy. Or the last time I actually brought my laptop down and I just did some cleanup stuff on the laptop. Got rid of, a bunch of old videos and images that I was never going to use. Trying to clean up some space. Trying to get rid of, temporary files and things like that needed to be gotten rid of. Yeah, and that's all I did. And it was about an hour for the washer and about 45 minutes for the dryer. Easy peasy. And it does not appear as though anybody's up here working yet, because I'm assuming that's the front office building. Oh, maybe there is somebody there. Maybe not. Fairmount Cemetery? Yeah, I think it's Fairmount Cemetery is the other one. I mean, there's some vehicles back there, but they look like work vehicles, not privately owned vehicles. So I don't know if anybody's actually manning the place. But yeah, we'll go down the middle here. I think last time we went down the other side over there. But yeah. Sorry, the name on that one was Perrin. And my first thought was Wheel of Time. Because, I'm a big old geek. Ford. I have a friend, a dude I've known since I was like 12. His name is Ford. He's been married a few times and he's got kids by even more women than that. Never finished high school, but spent his 20s and 30s and even into his 40s working as a bartender. But I haven't seen him since my dad died because I don't go to my hometown anymore, so I don't know what he's up to. And I don't get on Facebook or anything. The funny part is, he grew up the street from me. That's how we met. I was like 10, he was like 12 or something, or I was 12 and he was 14, whatever. And his dad was a grand dragon, grand wizard, grand something with the local KKK chapter, according to my friend. And his dad would say some of the most vile things, but he'd say it in that soft, modern, racist way. Instead of saying N-words this and, N-words that, he'd say, he'd wear shirts that say, mix your vegetables, not your races. And, stay with your own people and stuff like that. Very open about it, but kind of passive aggressive about it, where, anywho, my friend only dated brown and black women when he was younger. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It was all about the Hispanic girls and the black girls. That's all he would date. And I think it was more to make his dad mad because he's blonde haired and blue eyed. He's exactly what his dad loves. And then he ended up marrying a blonde hair and blue eyed girl who was, I guess, Miss Teen Florida runner-up one year. And she was pretty. I mean, don't get me wrong. But I went over to her dad's house with him one time. He had just bought a house in my hometown area. And I was like, all right, well, let's go check it out, Because I just wanted to see what, the houses. I like learning stuff. I like seeing things. So fast forward, we go. The only reason I'm on this side is because a car is coming and the construction zone. But we get over there and it's a nice house. Don't get me wrong. I really wish I had been in a position to purchase it. But at the time I was not. But I liked the fact that it was next to a school, like the property abutted a school. So in the evenings it would be dead. And then the the weekends it would be dead, minus maybe a couple of staffers coming and going, to get after work or after school or before school work done, or catch up on the weekend type stuff. But that would have been about it. But you had a whole side of your house that was never going to have a neighbor on it other than the school. And I like that. Mitigate the number of neighbors you have. Plus, because he didn't have a fence, the schoolyard looked like the extension of his yard, so it looked like it just was wide open. Anywho, but it had these extra wide double front doors. Apparently they were put in like that because the previous owner was either in or lived with somebody in a wheelchair, so they had to have a extra wide doors up front, and they did it with extra wide French doors. I will say that the house, though, whoever had redone the floors redid them wrong. They cut the wood pieces in there to fit perfectly, and you have to leave a little bit of space because wood breathes. It gets, it absorbs humidity, it expels humidity. So there are certain times of year and certain times of day where the wood might expand, and that's what had happened. It expanded, but because it hit the wall, there was nowhere for it to go, so it started buckling in a couple of the rooms. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get out here and get this all taken care of. And it's like, yeah, but at least you have it. I mean, these are easy fixes, a few $100s and a few hours of time. But yeah, her dad, he had tattoos on himself of the Confederate flag, and those sayings like the South will rise again and go home Yankee and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, so dad might be a little racist too, which makes me wonder if daughter's a little racist. Also being blonde hair and blue-eyed compared to my friend who was also blonde hair and blue-eyed, who was also raised by a racist dad. Now my friend was not racist, not even in the least bit. But things change, especially when you get other influences. I have somebody in my life who used to be very liberal. Well, not very liberal, but liberal. Left of center. Definitely. And it used to be somebody you could talk to, have conversations, debate ideas, etc. Well, then Facebook, because she spent a lot of time on Facebook, the Facebook algorithm started feeding her a lot of BS, conspiracy theories, the whole QAnon thing, was feeding her stuff about white nationalism, because she lives in a state where a lot of white nationalists are moving to, and they're building white nationalist compounds and stuff. Because I remember in the early days of Facebook, I posted an article about how the people of her state were either racist or indifferent to racism, and she threw a fit. She lives out west here, but not in Colorado. She threw a fit, and I was like, hey, I'm not the one with the facts here that say that, white nationalists are moving to your state because your state is welcoming of their ideology. Blah, blah, blah. And she threw a fit, said that's not how it is, da, 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 da. Keep in mind, the state she lives in is 97% white. So I'm making that number up, but it's a lot. If it weren't for a university or two, they'd probably be 100% white. You know what I mean? So But it's gotten to the point where there's now articles coming out saying that white nationalists from other states are still moving to that state, only to find out that the white nationalists in those states are so, or in that state are so vile and toxic that the white nationalists from like California and Nevada and, you know, Texas and stuff are actually moving away. But it's not about that. It's about this woman who used to be, you know, fairly reasonable. We didn't agree on everything, but we were able to at least talk about it and just watch her. Like, I don't get on Facebook that often. Like, in November, it'll literally be 5 years since I've been on Facebook. But, sorry, going uphill again. But, yeah, she's one of those people that spends like all day, every day on Facebook. You know, she was in the Navy for like an enlistment, then got out to be a full-time mom, and then got a divorce because it turns out she didn't want to be married to her husband, the father of her children. So she joined the Air National Guard as a full-time person, and then ended up retiring from the Air National Guard. I mean, you know, she wasn't a pilot or anything. She did like office work, so not the most military of military people. And she's like, oh yeah, you know, oh, look at me, I'm so great. You know, I have my government job and I don't have to do a lot of work. Well, let me rephrase that. She did a lot of work, but the lot of work was trivial, busy work. But she thought it was, you know, like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do all this, but at least, you know, I'm not doing what other people have to do. I don't know how better to explain it right now. Kind of like, I mean, if you've ever met a government worker, and I have nothing but respect for a lot of them, but you get the ones that they're just happy they have their government job. They can't spell government job, but they have their job and they know it's going to be difficult to be fired, and they hold that power over your head. Like, you can't, like, I went to the DMV one time here in Denver, just a regular tagged, and the lady's like, where's your proof of insurance? And I said, here it is. And she goes, well, I need to see your actual insurance card. And I said, no, you don't. You need to see proof of insurance. Here is proof of insurance. Here is my contract from the insurance company. And she was like, I need to see the card. And I'm like, no, you don't. The law states you only have to see proof of insurance. And she said, well, there's no expiration date on here. I said, it doesn't need to be on there. Because all I have to do is show that I have insurance today. Not that I have insurance tomorrow, not that I have insurance next year, but that I have insurance today. That's all I'm required to prove. And she's like, oh, are you arguing with me? Do you want me to call the police? I'll call the police and have you kicked out of here. And then how are you going to register your vehicle? And it's like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm explaining to you how you are factually incorrect. Like, here's the law. Here's the sign in your own building, right here, that says proof of insurance required, not what form of proof is required. Yeah, so, but she was just so secure in the fact that she could make a single phone call, have me either kicked out or possibly arrested for harassing a government employee, when all I was doing was explaining to her how she was abusing her power. But there are a lot of government employees like that, especially cops. And, you know, I've done some substitute teaching, and aside from another substitute, I never saw a teacher that hated being a teacher. I saw another substitute that hated being there, and I felt so bad for the kids. Because apparently she was on a long-term program. What do I mean by that? They had substitutes like myself that would, you know, pick up when teachers were out for the day. whether they're sick, they have an appointment, they're gone to get married or gone to a wedding or whatever the case may be, you know, substitutes like me would go in and do it. And it worked fine. I loved it. The teachers more than likely left busy work. I'd always ask the kids if they want to do busy work or if they want to do something a little bit more interactive. Most of the time they want to do busy work, which I get. It's homework mitigation. You know, or maybe catching up on, you know, using the day as a work day to catch up on a project or whatever, which is perfectly fine. But, yeah, this lady, but then there's the other type of substitute teacher and what we call long-term replacements. And therefore, when a teacher's going to be out for maternity leave, or teacher's out for a week or two for chemo, or teacher's out for, you know, a month-long sabbatical or whatever the case may be. But they, you know, the multi-day ones like that pay a little bit more, which is great. But this teacher, I walked into her class because I was subbing for a class for half a day while the teacher was at like a doctor's appointment or something. But I only had class for like 45 minutes of that half day. Like I got there in the morning, first class was no class. And then, you know, second class, they brought in some students. Keep in mind, this is like second grade. First grade or second grade, I don't remember. But they were younger. They brought the previous teacher brought them in and said, hey, here you go. All right, cool. It was disorganized chaos. The kids kept doing whatever they wanted to do without listening to me. Suddenly it was time for them to go to the next class, and I had a free class again. And then they were going to lunch. So that was also a free class again. So I talked to the principal and I'm like, hey, you're paying me to be here until this time. Is there something else you'd like me to do? Like, so I'm not just sitting there taking up space? And she's like, yeah, sure, come help with this other substitute. And she took me in there. Now this lady might have been a retired teacher, or she might have just been a person who hated children. But we walk in, it's a math class. Math is not my forte, but you know, I can at least do 8th grade math, mostly. I think I said I wanted to try this bridge. I drove up here the other day to go to an appointment, and I saw this very intersection here, and I was looking, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll take that across the bridge one day. So I think I tried it once and the trail ended, but I looked at Google Maps and it looks like there's actually a good trail over there somewhere. But yeah, she was in there just screaming and yelling at the kids. Kids were not paying attention to her at all. Maybe it wasn't even like 8th grade math. Maybe it was like 5th or 6th grade math, because it was still in elementary school. But yeah, I was like, you know, so I just kind of stepped in. I was like, excuse me. I was like, hey guys, you know, talking to the students, and I was like, hey, and they all stopped and they turned to look at me, and I was like, Mrs. Whatever is trying to teach you something. Can you guys pay attention so you can pick this up? And they all sat down and paid attention. And I'm like, it wasn't thank you. It wasn't, you know, oh, maybe I should try a softer approach. It wasn't anything. It was, oh, you're a man. They listen to you because you're a man. Well, no, they listened to me because 1, I got louder than them. 2, I wasn't screaming at them. 3, I respected them. That's why they listened to me. And I did, you know, while she was trying to teach the math equations or whatever, I was just walking around their room asking the kids, like, you know, I'd go to, because they all work at tables, they don't work at desks, just asking the tables, hey, does anybody here have questions? Anybody here, you know, need help with anything? And I fully expected most of the kids to say no, but an actual good number of the kids like flagged me down. They're like, yeah, can you walk me through this? I don't understand it. And I'm like, all right, let's take a look. And then that substitute, when I got done with the kids and it was time for the next class, she came up to me and she goes, yeah, it's because you're a man. They don't respect me because I'm a woman. I'm like, no, they don't respect you because you don't respect them. Like, kids aren't stupid. Does anybody here, do people not remember what it's like to be a kid? I remember what it's like to be a kid. I remember paying attention to everything. Always observing, always seeing how, everybody reacted to everything. Because there were times when I was that kid who was like, yeah, I'm not quite getting it. Can somebody help me? And then there's times where it's like, oh yeah, this is a piece of cake. But yeah, I mean, I remember paying attention. Like, I remember listening, being 5-6 years old, listening to my mom have conversations with my dad on the phone. I knew what was up. Like, I paid attention. I remember, walking down the halls in school and listening to teachers have conversations that they don't think kids are paying attention to. I remember what it was like to be in the 4th grade and have a substitute teacher. Sometimes they're really cool. Sometimes they were just, to put your head down and I don't want to hear anything, people. And I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to be the one that, the kids, like, I don't want to say thought were cool, but like if there was for the kids, a substitute teacher is kind of like a reprieve from the day. It's the same because you're in the same class, but it's different because you got a different teacher, maybe you have different assignments, maybe you have different something. But there's no reason in the world, why you should be a jerk to the kids just because you're a substitute. You have as I explained it to a couple of the older classes that I worked with, like 8th grade, 9th grade, things like that. I only have you for one day. You all have not a free pass, but you all have a blank slate with me. Oh, something's going on over here. Like, everybody has a blank slate. I don't have any history. I don't have any problems with any of you. So, whoopsie. Oh, wow. These kids were really good. Thank you. Excuse me, guys. Thank you. Yep. Excuse me, guys. So, yeah. But I remember being a kid, and we all hit that age at one point or another where we're like, treat me like an adult, I'm an adult. But parents don't do that, and a lot of teachers don't do that because they don't see a burgeoning adult. They see an older child. Let's go around this way. I've never done this. But I did look at the map, the sky view, and apparently I can get all the way around here, so. But yeah, it was, and that's what I did when I went into some of these substitute teaching things, especially if the kids are older, middle schoolers or whatnot. Because I just treat them like little adults instead of treating them like big children. And it made all the difference. But yeah, I've been in a lot of schools, I've been in a lot of grades. I've never seen a full-time teacher who hated being a teacher. Now, is that to say those teachers aren't there? Not at all. But that is to say that, they at least love their jobs, where there's a lot of other government workers who just, they're holding their time until retirement. They don't care. They know there's a law on the books that prevents you from yelling at them for doing a bad job. And those are, sadly, the ones that a lot of people see. Because you also have to remember that, when you do something for work, you see it day in and day out. You know it in and out. You're a specialist at it. You're a professional at it. So, whether you're an architect, a quantum theorist, a cash register operator, or, a marketing expert, You know your job inside and out. You know all the buzzwords, you know all the key phrases, you know how the pieces all fit together. You know, Joe Blow coming up the driveway does not know that. That person's mom over there who needs help with her cell phone doesn't know that. Or doesn't know what you know. Not that they don't know that you're an expert. They don't know what you know. That person in finance or accounting who's having problems with their computer for the 15th time this month, they're not IT people. They don't have that expertise. You come in and you go, oh, it's something that's simple because you work with it all day long. Everybody else is like, you know, I have my own expertise. I don't have time to also be an expert at your job. And I think that's where a lot of businesses, well, you know, where it's a failure of leadership, absolutely. But I think that's where a lot of businesses fail. Where they start having problems with customer satisfaction is when people act like just because I know something doesn't mean you have the right to not know it. Did that make sense? Like, you know, I'm an expert at CPA. You know, so I'm going to talk to you like you're also an expert at CPA, as opposed to explaining it to you in a way that you can understand it. And you see that all the time. I even have to catch myself occasionally because, you know, there's a lot of things that I just assume people know because I know it. And if I know it, like, shouldn't everybody else know it? Like, and we're not even talking about, like, niche things like, you know, comic book stuff or, you know, fantasy novels or movies or something. We're talking about, like, in general. Like a friend of mine, 50-something-year-old female, who's a self-prescribed car person who didn't know how to change oil in her car. And I'm like, how did you get to be 55 and not know how to change oil? Like, we're not talking teenager. We're not talking 20s. We're talking 55, 56. Like, you don't even know, like, the basics of it. Like, you can't even walk through it as a, you know, like, take me through the steps. You literally don't know how to do it. And to me, that's just, you know, if you've ever owned a car, you should know how to change the oil. It should be that simple. You know, we're not talking switching out the transmission or rebuilding a valve or something. We're talking about, you know, regular routine maintenance. Even if you take your car somewhere to get the oil changed, you should know how to change the oil. Just like changing out a flat tire. You know, everybody who owns a car should know how to change a flat tire. Everybody. And women should know some of these things more than men. So, because unfortunately, there are a lot of mechanics out there that'll try and lie to women because they don't think women know anything. So they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I know you came in here for an oil change, but we found out that your wiper fluid was low and your turn signal greaser was out. So we had to replace that too. So yeah, your $50 oil change just turned into $350 in parts and labor. You know, so you need to know enough not to get screwed over by, you know, a mechanic. To know when somebody's at least lying to you or misleading you or whatever. But there's a lot of people apparently who do not. And it just astounds me. And I'm not, you know, I'm just using that as an example. Like, look at this bicycle right here. Could I change out the inner tube if I needed to? Absolutely. Could I change out the chain if I needed to? Absolutely. You know, but am I the kind of person who has the skill set to set up a bicycle for certain types of riding, you know, like dirt versus road versus flat track versus downhill versus whatever? No. You know, I don't have that level of expertise, but I know enough to do basic stuff if I need to. And that's my point. Like, there are so many people out there that don't know anything. go this way. So yeah. But yeah, I just assume if I don't know it, or if I know it, then most everybody should know it, unless it's, specific knowledge. Like, my bachelor's degree is in political science. I love talking about politics. I have a solid base of political theory beneath me. And the best thing about politics is there is no definitive answer to anything. Everything is interpretable. Everything is up for debate. Like, there are people out there who think that Donald Trump destroying the economy and the rule of law is somehow the greatest thing that's ever happened to the United States. Once thought to be the most stable economy on the planet, and the place that other states mimicked because they wanted to be better. And he's ruined all of that. But some people think that's a good idea. And it's like, no, it's not. It's the irony is all these people wearing and I've seen tattoos of it too, but we're gonna assume shirts and hats and stuff, or bumper stickers that have the lions, not sheep stuff, that are going around being the sheep. It's so hilarious. It's like you're bragging that you're a lion, not a sheep, although you're a sheep in lion's clothing. Like, you're trying to act tough, but you don't know what you're acting tough about. And it's just, it astounds me. Like, I'm a lion. Really? Then why do you get in line whenever this person tells you something? Why do you believe them wholeheartedly? Oh, pardon me. Oh, that was not a gnat. That was something else. I actually felt it bounce off my lip and into my throat. Oh. But yeah. But these people think they know everything, but they don't. Hell, I don't even know everything. I say it like that because I like to learn, and I like to learn what I don't know. So I am constantly learning something. I get into moods where I want to learn about this, so I spend, days, weeks, months learning about that. And then I get into another mood where I want to learn about that. And then I spend days, weeks, months learning about that. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, which means, but I like to learn. I like to always pick up new skills. I like to read new kinds of books and articles and stuff to get a better understanding of things. And there are things that I don't want to learn. It just happens. There are things that I just don't want to take my time to learn. One of the things that's hilarious is, we were talking about white nationalists earlier, talking about, Republicans. White nationalists overwhelmingly support Republicans, and Republicans don't say no, so they're welcome to it, or they're open to it. Donald Trump openly embraced the white nationalists, the separatists. If you've been on the internet, if you've been in the seedy parts of the internet anyway, for the last, since 2000 at least, then you've seen the people that have been talking about a second civil war coming for, decades. And this is an actual thing. Like, they bring it up. They might talk openly about it in their little private safe spaces where they can, whine about some black guy being in front of them in line and how nobody allowed them to go first because they're white or something. I don't know what white supremacists whine about because I don't hang out with them. Although I have had a couple conversations recently where people dropped hints, like overt hints, I'm guessing as a gauge to see how I respond. Like a guy that lives in my building, he's a Marine or a prior service Marine. So we talk a lot, but he's one of those who's like, everybody around here is a thief, everybody steals your stuff. But he's not, the the person who's complaining that somebody's stealing his shirts or his socks. He's the person that says they're stealing our money. The staff aren't paying the bills here. They're just stealing our rent checks. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure they're paying the bills. He's like, no, they're stealing our checks. And it's like, no, they're not stealing your checks, dude. Sorry. They're just not. But he's that guy. But yesterday, he caught me in the parking lot and we were chatting about stuff and this and that. And he's like, yeah. He goes, they just need to fire everybody here. After he got on this whole, they're stealing stuff. Most of the staff, not most of the staff, but I'd say about half the staff is people of color. And this guy, this Marine, by the tone of his skin and stuff, I just assumed he was, Hispanic. I don't know his last name. I know his first name starts with a D, but I can't even remember that. I asked somebody yesterday and they couldn't remember either. But, he's got really dark skin, like olive skin, like that kind of like deep Italian or Mediterranean or Hispanic or something style skin. Now, don't get me wrong, even when it's 98 degrees out, he's wearing a t-shirt with a flannel and a backpack everywhere he goes. So all you can see is his face and hands. But still, I was not expecting him to pop out yesterday and say, yeah, they just need to hire some white nationalists here. Some good white Christian people. Because, they don't steal. And I'm like, first of all, was not expecting that. Second of all, there's no guarantee that just because somebody's a Christian doesn't mean they're going to steal. I mean, most of Christianity's history is doing nothing but stealing from other people. Stealing land, stealing holidays, stealing traditions, stealing lives, stealing jobs. So, yeah, I have a hard time believing that just because somebody is of a particular faith, that automatically makes them a good person. Or somehow more moral or just than anybody else. Excuse me. So I thought I heard, sounded like something over here on the other side of this construction area. Like, you know how sometimes like a chain link fence will blow in the wind and the little, the gate will smack up against the metal, to give that kind of ting with the wind. It sounded kind of like that, but I only heard it once, one ting. But it was loud enough to hear over the headset. It was a thingy, okay. So I'm at 10 miles. I'm just gonna go up here a little bit further and turn around. Since yesterday's bike ride was so short, I actually thought about getting a better ride in today, or a longer one. But I slept like crap last night. And I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning to somebody around me sounded like they were banging a hammer on tile or trying to break bricks apart or something. And yes, I recorded it again. But I heard it. There were like 8 or 9 knocks. Knock, 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 like that. And then a couple minutes passed by and I heard it again. So that's when I started recording it. And naturally, once I started recording, it only sounded one more time. And it was only half as long. I think it was like 4 knocks instead of 8 or 9. It's very frustrating. Because I'm awake. I'm going through the effort of recording this evidence. And then it stops. It's like Murphy's Law. It's very annoying though. Because I already have sleep issues from my time in the military. I don't have it in me to be woken up by random noises as well as the other reasons I wake up. This time there are people next to me, sort of. They're not going to pass. I don't know what's going on. Okay. We're going to go over here. So 2 bikes pulled up behind me. The guy rang his bell to let me know he was there. I definitely heard that. I look over my shoulder. I see them there, so I go ahead and move over to the side as far as I can so they can pass me on the left, and they just hang out at my back tire. Like, I don't know what they were expecting. Were they expecting me to speed up or slow down or whatever? So that's actually the reason I pulled over here, was so that they could pass. Ooh, I'm surprised I did that. Yeah, so, but I needed a turnaround point anyway. Yeah, like there's so I do some product testing now and again. I work with a company that gives me something. Depends on what it is. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's a hygiene product, sometimes it's a household item. And I test it for X amount of days, or a week, or 2 weeks, or however long the test is. And then I have to fill out a report and submit feedback. Easy peasy. It's not regular. Sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 in a week. Sometimes I'll do, I'll go a month or 2 without doing 1. So it's nothing I can rely on. So for me, it's just extra spending money. Because they don't actually pay you. It's not a job. It's just, extra money here and there. Like $50 here, $40 there, things like that. Well, last week they gave me some breaded, deboned chicken that you might find in the frozen section of the supermarket. And I won't get into any more detail than that because I do sign confidentiality agreements with each test or with each evaluation. So I can't tell you names, I can't tell you products, I can't tell you if it's on the market or if it's coming to the market or anything like that. So fast forward, they give me these 2. I thought it was going to be, because they're like, yeah, we need somebody to test these chicken products. And I was like, yeah, sure, I eat chicken all the time. Trying to cut my red meat down, so I'm eating a lot of chicken right now. But there's people I passed a second ago. Whoop. Excuse me again. How you doing? But I'm doing my, they sent me, I thought they were going to send me like a couple of pieces of chicken. No, they gave me the whole package. So I only had to eat or prepare and eat 2 pieces, 1 from each package, but they gave me full packages. So now I have all this chicken that I'm probably not going to eat. Not because there's anything bad about it, it's a lot. And I'm trying to eat. Chicken's fairly lean, but with the breading and stuff, it does add a fat level content to it. So each chicken breast with the breading, typically a chicken breast might have 1 or 2, grams of fat because chicken is fairly lean. Most poultry is. But this particular one had like 10 grams of fat per patty. 10 grams of fat. Are you kidding? So I'm like, it's something that I would put in the freezer and I would eat occasionally, like if I had nothing else and I just needed something. Because I'll be honest, it was great to cook, really easy. You could, and what I did was I just put it between a couple pieces of bread with some mayo and cheese and made a nice little chicken sandwich out of it. And it worked great. And I bought stuff like this before. And I did exactly that with it. Was I would either cook it up and use it as like a chicken topping for like macaroni or some kind of pasta, or I just throw it on between a couple pieces of bread with some sandwich toppings and call it a chicken sandwich. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But this place, I'm trying to be leaner right now. So I'm trying not to eat anything that has extra carbs or extra fat or extra sugars or whatever. But yeah, so fast forward. I was like, when I was in the lobby of the building yesterday, I was talking to a couple people that I know are on extremely fixed incomes. But I also know they are, what do you call it? You know, but they're on extremely fixed income. So I asked them both, because they're friends. I've met the guy through the girl, but they're friends. He's a veteran. He's an Air Force veteran. And he told me the first time I ever spoke to him, he seemed drunk. And then second time I ever spoke to him, he actually admitted to me that he was an alcoholic. He's like, yeah, he goes, I just got a problem with the booze, And I'm like, oh, well, at least you're aware of it. That's step one. Step two is fixing it. He's like, yeah, but I don't care. I'm like, okay. And then the girl, I think she does a little harder stuff, because every day that I've noticed anyway, and this has happened almost every day that I've noticed, she goes and gets in a vehicle with a quote-unquote friend of hers. They leave and they come back like 5 minutes later. And I was told by the guy who said he's an alcoholic that her friend brings her drugs, and they just drive off the property real quick, do the drugs, and then she comes back and she's all drugged up. Which I can see how that would play out. But fast forward, yeah, they were sitting there talking yesterday, and I walked up on them and, chatted with them for a minute, and then I was like, by the way, I have all these extra chicken if you guys want it. Like, I'm not going to eat it all, so I'm happy to share. And they're both like, yeah, that's great, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, cool. Now, the guy, he lives on the same floor as me, just a couple doors down. And I was like, well, are you going up to your apartment right now? I'll get it for you. And he goes, no, I'll be up there in a little while. I said, okay. Well, you know what unit I'm staying in, so you can come and get it. I should be in the room for the rest of the afternoon unless I'm, down in the lobby getting the filtered water. So, I know I sometimes call it a room because it is a studio little apartment. It looks like a room, but technically it is an apartment. So he, I see him again throughout the rest of the day, but he never comes by the room. I never see him on our floor. I don't see him in the lobby. I see him like when I'm coming and going and he's hanging out in the smoking section. Because while I'm not 100% sure he smokes, I think he hangs out there because they also do a lot of drinking in the smoking sections. And it's, it's just a social aspect. I got a story about that too. Like when I was in the Army and I saw how people were, I was stationed on Fort Hood, so I was still young. I was like 19. But I saw how a lot of people would just go on smoke breaks. Like the entire shop would shut down because 75% of the shop were smokers. And they'd all go out there at the same time, and they'd all hang out for, between 15 and 20 minutes at a time, like once an hour. But if you were a non-smoker, you would, and you stopped working for 15 or 20 minutes every hour, you'd get in trouble. So I started noticing, and whenever the smokers would go out on their smoke break and leave the shops empty, because it was electronics repair shop, I'd go out there with them and stand upwind. I remember, I think like the third time I did that, my E7, keep in mind, I'm only an E3 at the time, my E7 came out, and he's like, what are you doing out here? Looking at me, you're not a smoker. And I said, Sergeant. And I kind of threw the smokers under the bus, but I didn't care because, I'm not a smoker. I don't like smoking. I think it's a disgusting habit. And most smokers are, disgusting in their habit. yeah, I grew up around smokers. I grew up in a smoke-filled house. I grew up with junior high and high schoolers who were already smoking. And I never liked it. But I was like, Sergeant, I didn't see how it was fair that they're allowed to take a 15-minute break every hour to smoke while I had to continue working. So I figured while they come out here for a smoke break, I can come out here for a fresh air break. And he had no response for that. He's just like, everybody back in. But he did clamp down on the smoke breaks because, people were taking advantage of it. And I worked at another company here in Colorado. It doesn't exist anymore. It's now got a new name. But when I worked there, it was called Quest. And I was a contractor. There was another contractor on the team. And he was one of those who had to go out like every 15 minutes for a smoke. So he'd go out for a 10 or 15 minute smoke every 10 or 15 minutes. And he was doing this a lot. And then I started getting up and going away from my desk, like every time they would go out for a smoke break. And the manager of the group came over to me one day. And again, I'm a contractor. There's nothing he could do about it. But he came over and he goes, why are you always away from your desk? And I was like, well, I figure if all the smokers can go outside and smoke all the time, and it's not affecting their productivity, then I can stay in here and, sit in the break room for 10 or 15 minutes. And and if I'm being held to the same standard, then it's not affecting my productivity. And then he started, crunching down on the smokers. Now, some of you are going to be like, oh man, you're mean, you're a jerk, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, don't care. Look, I really don't. Smoking is an addiction. It's not anything anybody needs to do. It's something people want to do. And I don't have sympathy for it. And smokers, by and large, get away with not working as hard as non-smokers because they do get to take those smoke breaks. It's considered normal. But it's not considered normal to take a fresh air break for some reason. It's not considered normal to work at your desk for a full 60 minutes that hour, as opposed to taking a 10 or 15 minute break, every hour. The irony is that so many companies out there are trying to make their workplaces more efficient, blah, 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 but they're not stomping down on smoking. They're like, oh yeah, we could probably, why are these 5 employees producing, 2 times as much as these 12 employees? Well, those 12 employees are smokers and they're taking a lot more breaks. Now, some companies are a little bit more strict on their breaks, which I disagree with, because we're all adults. We should be allowed to manage ourselves. But I get it. I mean, I even, that's a snake. A little tiny snake, but a snake nonetheless. I worked at a company, I've mentioned them before. They were rated as the quote-unquote best place to work in Denver for like 5 out of 6 years a few years ago. Ping pong tables, basketball courts, music, keg days, things like that. Well, fast forward, my manager, who was like 15 years younger than me, but he had been at the company for like 15 years, he was a hardcore smoker. Like 2 or 3 times an hour, he was going out on smoke breaks. And then when you notice that his manager, the senior managers, were also hardcore smokers, and all the other managers were hardcore smokers, and it's like, is there anybody in a leadership position, and I use the term loosely because position is not leadership, but is there anybody in a management position on this entire department not a smoker? And then my manager, after about 9 months, 10 months, he actually had the audacity to come up to me one day and he's like, hey, I noticed you were away from your computer for 20 minutes on last Tuesday. And I was like, okay. And he goes, well, where were you? And I was like, I don't know. It was last Tuesday. I don't keep track of my, every minute of every day and what I'm doing. There's a very good chance I took a personal call and I stepped away from my desk. And he's like, well, I need to know what you were doing. And I said, no, you don't. You need to know if I completed my workload and met my metrics, which I did. He goes, well, yeah, technically you did. And I said, okay, then I don't see what the problem is. Well, you could have worked harder. I'm like, yeah, but you're not paying me to work harder. Sorry, $14 an hour when it costs a minimum of like $34 an hour in Colorado to even live by yourself is not something you're paying me to work harder with. He's like, well, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, I don't care. I said, you're the smoker. It wasn't quite as blunt as this. There was a little bit more of a transition or a pivot. But I was like, yeah. I said, you don't need to be telling me that I need to be working harder. I said, every time I look up at your desk, you are gone. He's like, well, I have meetings. And I said, no, you have smoke breaks. Because I can guarantee you, every time you're not at your desk, if I go outside and walk to the smoking area, there you are. Along with the other managers. And usually both of the senior managers. So don't sit here and tell me about, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you enjoy working here, don't you? Like, you love working here. This is like you really need to love this company. And I'm like, no, I don't. This is a company. I am exchanging my time and expertise for a paycheck. And you guys keep hobbling our paychecks. So I don't care anymore. And that was because this was soft sales. It was customer support. I wasn't looking for a sales job, but you did get bonus, daily and weekly bonuses if you did upsales. Like if they called in for a base model something and you sold them and you convinced them to purchase the high-end model, you got a little bonus based off the difference. And that's how they justified paying so little of a base pay. On your left. Oh, excuse me. But that's how they justified paying so little in base pay, was that you were going to make your money up in the cross sales or the up sales. And to some extent, yes, there was the possibility of making an extra, $1,500 to $2,000 a week. But the company had positioned itself to where it could not offer the services that it was selling. What do I mean by that? Okay, the easiest way to imagine it is, a physical store. The company I worked for was not a physical store. It was an online thing, but let's imagine a physical store. And you take, let's say you have, chicken breast. And you have 10 chicken breasts over there in the freezer section. And you have 10 chicken breasts over there in the freezer section because we talked about chicken breasts earlier. So let's say you have that. Oh man, my hip is starting to hurt, like pretty bad. Crap. Luckily I'm already headed back, but yeah, damn. Sorry. But you have 10 chicken breasts. And throughout the day, you sell 7, 8 chicken breasts. Okay, so now you're down to, let's say, 2. And you have 2. But you still have people coming in asking for chicken breasts, so you sell your last 2. But but now it's only like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and now people are coming in to buy dinner stuff, and you don't have any more chicken breasts to sell them, which is where my company did not have enough product to sell the customer, but you still tried to sell it anyway. So you still talked up your chicken breast. You still talked about how great it was and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Maybe you talked about the organic one that, you can sell maybe 3 a day, as opposed to 50 a day. Maybe you talk about whatever, but you're talking up a product that they can't buy. And you convince them to come back and buy it another day. But you're not going to get a commission on it when they come back and buy it another day, because you can only get a commission on something that you can actually sell. And that's what this company did. It had oversold its promise, did not have enough product to sell the customer base, but still demanded that, when the customers call and complain about their product, that we try to sell them on something that we didn't have. So, but if you were lucky enough to find something in the database to have, sent their way, then maybe you'd get the commission. But, you got 5-6 teams of up to 100 people total, all doing the same thing. So let's say, that same store scenario, you got 5 or 6 clerks in that store, all trying to sell you on chicken that you don't have in stock. And, if somebody does bring back one and it goes back out onto the freezer section, or if someone finds one in the cooler in the back and takes it up front and puts it in the freezer section, it's sold by the first come, first serve. So that's what the company did, and they kind of hamstrung us on because they didn't have any products available, we couldn't make commissions. And people were getting disgruntled, and the company's like, well, too bad, so sad, this is the way it is now. And it's like, no, you're taking my ability to make that extra $1,500, $2,000 a week, and now telling me that I'm basically working for $14 an hour, no commissions. So you are not paying me enough to care about this job. Now there were some, most of us, a lot of people left over, after this happened. My friend, the one that has cancer, I use the term friend loosely. We haven't talked in 6 months. That's a whole other story. But I ended up getting fired because I replied to somebody's email and they didn't like it. The guy would send out these quote-unquote motivational emails every morning, but he was doing it poorly. Like every morning he'd send out these emails with motivational quotes, and they were either miscontributed quotes, quoted incorrectly, spelling errors, grammatical errors, like, random capitalized letters, but not at the first of the sentence type stuff. So I just responded to the dude one time. I was kind of in that mood where I was like, I'm not putting up with crap today. And his stupid email came out, and I was like, and I just replied to it, and I was like, hey, that's not the actual quote. The actual quote is this, and I provided a link. The quote that you have comes from a commercial. So it's not an actual quote. You're misattributing it. And there's a difference between there, and there. Perhaps you should proofread before you send these out, or something to that effect. And he complained to management that I was harassing him, and then they fired me over it. So, whatever. Yeah, like I said, this company treated its employees. They like to tout how they had the pool tables and the ping pong and the what's it called, air hockey, and the bicycles and everything. But they didn't tell you how crappy they actually treat the employees. How people there were addicted to energy drinks and hardcore drugs just to make it through the day. And it's like, yeah, you're... And then they, it was just a horrible company. Kind of like a cult, It's all pretty and nice on the outside, but on the inside, it's toxic as hell. And that's how this company was. They did some shady stuff too that you wouldn't notice unless you were in the background. And one of my fellow employees, we had all noticed it. We'd all heard about it from our customers that were calling into us. But one of our fellow employees went through this experience where the company, he was trying to use the company as a service provider for himself, for his own needs. And he had the same experience that we heard from dozens of our customers. And he's like, yeah, this is kind of BS that our company is doing this, because it's making our customer base mad. And our manager, he's just like, we don't talk about negative things here. And, you know, the coworker's like, well, we were in a meeting. And the coworker's like, well, no, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, this is something that needs to be addressed because we all hear this every day, but I experienced it myself firsthand. So let's say, for example, and this is not a true example, but let's say, for example, you call customer service for whatever service you have. Doesn't matter what it is. Cable, cell phone, you know, the apartment complex that you live in, you know, your bank, whatever. You call customer service. Let's say, you know, you call customer service and the customer service person is the rudest person in the world to you. Not that they're professional and, you know, not bending over backwards to help you, but that they're rude. They're like, yeah, what do you want? Oh my God, you know, and you're trying to explain to them and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe people are this stupid, blah, blah, blah. So you start hearing that feedback, like your customer service sucks. Your customer service is horrible. Your customer service just calls and berates you because you clicked the wrong thing on the website or whatever the case may be. Well, this happened to my coworker. He tried to use our company as a service provider for something that he needed, and he got that bad experience. And he was just explaining to the boss, like, this is, you know, you need to pass this up. This is not, you know, the moral and ethical approach that, you know, this company claims that it values. And the boss was like, oh, we don't say negative things here, because the company did have a positivity only requirement. So, you know, their idea being that you are not allowed to be in a bad mood. You are not allowed to have a bad day. You are not allowed to, you know, sleep wrong. You are not allowed to be on your period. You are not allowed to, you know, get into a fight with your spouse or your kids or come to work disgruntled or whatever. They actually would say it like that too. They're like, yeah, leave your problems at the door. Do not bring your problems into work. When you're here, you're working. Because they wanted everybody to be all positive all the time. And I remember I was talking to HR about something unrelated, and I brought that up, and she said, and this is the head of the HR, and she goes, well, that's not what that means. And I said, well, that's what your managers are pushing. She goes, but that's not what that means. Like, then you have a communication problem between your executive suite and your management, because that's what management is saying. So it's not my fault you guys aren't paying attention to what your managers are doing, which is, again, this comes down to a higher level manager problem. When they're not paying attention, they're just looking at the final stats, saying, you know, we don't care how you get there as long as you get there. And then you wonder why you have problems downstream because you have the wrong managers. Because you never trained your managers, you didn't promote the right people, you promoted, you know, high performers. High performing in sales does not automatically mean high performing in management. High performing in IT does not automatically mean you're a high performing manager. High performance in, you know, auto mechanics does not automatically mean you're a manager. It just means that you're good at your job. But somewhere along the way, they stopped hiring management for competency at management and started hiring management for competency at the job. And then they don't even bother training them. That's another issue. Oh my God. So many companies do not train managers. It's just sink or swim style. And then they wonder why they get they get bad reputations. They wonder why departments fail. They wonder why, you know, when managers take over departments or they decide to do a change, that, you know, they have high turnover. It's like, well, you kind of did it to yourself. You put it out there. But they never believe that because, you know, this is America. You believe what the top says, not what the bottom says. Even though, you know, the top has more incentive to lie to protect their ass because they have more to protect than the bottom does. I listen to a lot of stories on YouTube about workplace issues. You know, it might start off with a lead-in like, tell us about a time where a coworker got their comeuppance. Tell us about a time when karma fought back or got your boss. You know, tell us about a time when your coworker friend betrayed you. Things like that. And a lot of the stories, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them actually do have well, my company did an investigation and they found out that, yes, the manager lied. Yes, the director was wrong. Yes, the HR person, you know, submitted the wrong forms or whatever. Or yes, you know, the manager, they found out the manager had never done XYZ or had stolen the slide deck from an employee and claimed it as their own or whatever. But there's a lot of companies that won't even do that. They won't do that investigation, especially in, you know, at will states where they'll just fire you first. And then if they do an investigation, they might fire the other person too. But it's like, wait a minute. So you're firing the person who was the victim to protect the management, but then you're firing the management because you found out they actually did what the victim claimed they did, but you're not hiring the victim back or apologizing or anything. Yeah, that kind of thing. Like I had that happen once, a long time ago. I worked for an IT consulting company, and we had two major silos that we serviced. One was telecommunications companies, so transport OSI models through, you know, levels 1, 2, and 3 for the most part. Sometimes, you know, a little bit into 4, but not too much. And then, you know, you had your IT side, which you do more of the server stuff, these server implementations, which was your OSI models 4, 5, 6, 7, I think. Yeah, once you got past 4, you got past me. I understand like the concepts behind it, but I never worked in it, and I had no desire to learn it. And I know some people love it, and it's like, good for you. I have no desire to learn it. So fast forward, and oh, dang it. A lot of squirrels out today. And I forgot I had a little bag of like bread that a lot of times I like to take like bread before it goes moldy, but it's, you know, I've had it too long, and throw it out for like the birds, or in this case squirrels or whatever, and on trails like this. And I have a bag sitting right there, and I totally spaced grabbing it. But yeah, so we were working with a telecommunications company. They were trying to purchase another one. In order to do that, in order to meet FCC requirements, they had to do certain things. My company was hired to come in and facilitate getting those certain things done. So we're there, you know, we're working. It's pretty, you know, it's basic work. Nothing really high end. But it's, you know, it's generic grunt work for telecommunications. Let's just put it that way. Sitting at a desk, doing remote stuff. So I go, you know, and I do, you know, like all my stuff. I take a stack of paperwork, and I go through the paperwork, and I do everything that is required to get that up and running. And I'm going through, and I'm spending hours doing this daily. Spending hours working through these stacks. Once you get done with a stack, you go grab another stack. That kind of thing. You put the finished stack in the finished stack pile, and you go grab a, you know, stack in the new stack pile. Which is, you know, seems pretty harmless, right? And then you get the, so I had just finished a stack of stuff. The only thing, you know, I'd done all the work, I'd done all the virtual work that needed to get done. I had done all the quality assurance testing. I had, you know, done everything that I was required to do. I had logged all the notes. All I had to do was go through each one and click finished on the project. Now, the reason we click finish on the project is, one, to send it to the next department, and two, it puts a stamp on it, a time date stamp with your name, so they know, that you're the one who did it. So if there's ever an audit done, like, what was this person doing, you can say, oh, well, he did 54 of these last night, where, the average for the rest of the team was only 44, whatever. Or, but I had finished this whole stack. I was getting ready to go grab a new stack. This girl, I want to say her name was Cindy, but I don't really remember. She was on my team. She, we were brand new company, brand new employees. I think she was employee like 120 and I was employee like 122. And this is nationwide. We same title, same pay rate, same everything. Well, she decided she was everybody's boss. She just woke up one day and decided she was going to take on that role. Nobody promoted her. Nobody came out with a formal memo, or, nobody had a meeting that said, hey, run everything through her. Nothing. She just took ooh, bugs. She just took that as her own. So I was finishing up, and she came over with a stack of work, and she goes, here you go. And I said, oh, well, I was just going to finish these up and come get my own stack. She goes, because again, she's not there to assign work to anybody. And she goes, oh, well, how much more do you got to do on these? And she looked at my stack that I was finishing with. And I said, well, actually, I'm done with these. I just have to close all the tasks. And she goes, I'll do that. You can start on these. And I said, no, I did the work. I know what needs to happen from this point. I will do it because I will get the credit for it, not you. And she goes, well, I'm telling you I'll do it. And I'm like, no, I will get the credit. I will get the time date stamp. I will get it, not you. And that was it. I will do my work. You go do yours, was basically my response. That was it. No arguing, no fighting, no yelling, no going to a manager, no nothing. I get a call. I go home that day. I think the next day was my day off because we worked a 24/7 shift. So we'd work 4 12-hour shifts, and then we'd get 3 days off in a row, then work 4 12-hour shifts. But it was staggered, So I get a call from one of my coworkers the next day when I'm out walking my dog. I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he tells me, and I was like, hey, puppy. And he's like, hey, she's been on a rampage. She's talking to everybody about how you refuse to do what she says. And I'm like, well, she's not my boss. She's not your boss. And he goes, I know. I'm just giving you a heads up that she's doing her thing. And I was like, well, there's nothing she can do because she's nobody's boss. Well, 2 days later, the day before I go back into work, I get a call from the district manager. And he calls me up and he goes, hey, instead of going to the client site today or tomorrow, come by the office. So I'm like, okay. So I go by the office at my start time, which was 7 a.m. And I sit there. And he just lets me sit there. I'm not doing anything. Finally, at 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon, he calls me into his office with one of the other managers, the manager of the IT side. I was on the transport side. And he goes, I just want to let you know you're fired. And I was like, okay, for what? He goes, well, I heard you refused to do your work. And I said, no, go pull the reports. I've done my fair share of work. He goes, well, I've heard otherwise. And I said, well, pull the reports because I don't know what you've heard, but I do know that I've done my work. He goes, well, I heard that you're just sitting around playing video games and stuff. And I said, really? I said, because I don't play video games. So that kind of shocks me. He goes, well, I heard you do. And I said, well, I don't because I don't play video games. You can check. You can pull the IT records. You can pull security cam footage. You can pull whatever you want. I don't play. He goes, well, then I heard you play football in the office. And I'm like, how do you play football in an office? He goes, I don't know. I said, okay, so let's assume I was playing football in the office. Oh, is that grass? Or is that fake grass? Anywho. And I said, so, let's assume that I was playing football in the office. How do you do that? And he goes, I don't know. Maybe you were throwing the ball up against the wall and catching it. And I'm like, have you ever thrown a football up against the wall and tried to catch it? I said, and how was I doing that while getting all this workload done? He goes, I don't know. I just heard. And I said, so you're going off of rumor and accusation without actual proof? And he goes, yeah, and you're still fired. I said, well, I can tell you for a fact, I know who complained in the first place. And I can tell you for a fact, she actually played video games. And she refused to do any work. That's why she was always trying to do somebody else's work. Trying to do their last bit so she could get credit for it. And he goes, yeah, it doesn't matter, you're still fired. Like, fine. He also gigged me. He's like, one of his other complaints was I wasn't doing enough work. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, everybody else is billing, over 100 hours a week, and you're only billing between like 90 and 95. And I said, because we were billing a client. And I said, yeah, I am salaried. I don't see an extra penny for all of that. And I'm doing more than my fair share, considering I am not seeing an extra penny. And he said, I don't care. You're not doing enough. I said, I'm not doing enough because I have to go home and take care of my house and my family and stuff. And he goes, yeah, everybody else is able to work over 100 hours a week. Yeah. Anywho, I ended up losing my job. The manager of the other department actually gave me his card and he said, use me as a referral. That was unacceptable. He goes, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. But, sorry, looking at the Camaro. And he says, I'd hire you in a heartbeat, but I don't have any open positions on my team. I was like, it's all good, dude. And I left and I actually went to work for a much better company that I enjoyed working for a few years. They reorged the company a couple of times, and when we started falling under a new division, the new division district manager was he was the kind of person who hated employees. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, I ended up getting fired for doing my job and not giving a bully her way. But you'll always hear me come back and say, you have to stand up to bullies. If you don't stand up to them, then they just keep doing it. Now, I heard through the grapevine a couple of weeks later that she was fired for doing exactly what she accused me of doing. That same guy that called to warn me that was going to happen called to let me know that she had been let go because they caught her doing exactly what she accused me of doing. But I never received a I'm sorry call. I never received a call back to come work at the company again or anything like that. They just fire you and treat you like garbage and let you go. But I'm going to let you guys go. Thanks for coming along, and we're going to try and do this until the weather holds out.